Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Messaging That Sells, how to talk about what you do. My name is Colin Mahin, and I'm a director of programs at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit improving access and knowledge in entrepreneurship to advance economic progress for all. As you're going to see in the chat in just a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to help entrepreneurs fuel prosperity no matter where their journey begins. Be sure to check out those links and resources shared in the chat. All right, we're going to launch a few polls to step back and take a temperature gauge on how all of you are doing today. The first poll, how are we feeling about your business? Are you optimistic? In survival mode? Let us know. We use this information to guide the programs we provide for this global community of entrepreneurs. Also, if there are specific topics or challenges you'd like us to create resources for, feel free to share them in the chat. We'll take note. Couple more housekeeping items before we get started. Firstly, let us know where you're dialing in from. We would love to know where you're stopping by. We'd also going to be answering live Q&A near the end of this session, so please submit those questions for us at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to get to as many as we can. All right, let's see where people are coming from. Atlanta, San Diego, Princeton, New Jersey, New York City, New Orleans, Bellingham. Welcome, everyone. Southern California, Chicago. Awesome. Love it. Cincinnati, Cleveland. Great stuff. Atlanta, Dallas, LA. All right. We've got all kinds of time zones, so I'm so stoked. Thank you all for letting us know where you're dialing in from. And as you are filling out that last poll, I'd like to take a moment and recognize the incredible support from our corporate partners. The work we do at the center wouldn't be possible without all the generosity and belief of our partners and funders, including NASDAQ, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, KPMG, Walmart, the Asia Innovation Hub, Wilson Sonsini, the Nareed Foundation, and BPM. We're deeply grateful for their partnership and hope you'll join us in sharing that appreciation too. Alrighty, let's take a look at this last poll. What's keeping you up at night? Looks like finance and sales and marketing are kind of at the top here. And the good news for everybody on the call is we're going to be covering some of that with our very special guest. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our presenter. Laura Khalil is a sales and marketing coach and brand storyteller. Laura, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Colin. I am so happy to be here with all of you today to talk about messaging that sells.
So excited.
Excellent. So first thing I want to do is I'm just going to pop into the chat my LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with me on there. And then I'm actually going to open up a presentation for us to get into it. If you have any questions during this presentation, please pop them in the Q&A box and we will spend some time at the end addressing them. I want to try to get to all of your questions. So let's get this going. All right. Okay, and you should all be able to see my screen right now. If you can't, let me know and we'll fix it, but I think it's looking good from my perspective. So hi, everyone. Welcome. Today, we are going to talk about messaging that sells, what exactly that means, and the components of having very attractive messaging that gets people excited to talk to you and say, how can I work with you? Tell me more. So some of you, I was just looking through the participant list. I saw some of my clients here. I saw some names from LinkedIn I recognize, but if you don't know me, which is probably most of you, my name is Laura Khalil, and I help founders tell their brand story in a way that actually lands, because so many of us tell our story and it just falls flat. It doesn't resonate with people. So hopefully today we are going to improve that for you and at least give you some ideas for moving forward. These are some of the clients that I've worked with. So I always like to let people know who they're dealing with when you get onto a webinar. I've worked with everyone from Fortune 5 companies such as GE all the way down to solopreneurs. And the strategies that we use in messaging are slightly different at different levels. So today's conversation is really focused around founders, around small business owners. And I'll talk more about why that is when we get into the presentation. But just so you know, I've been doing this for 12 years. I know my stuff, and I'm hoping to share some goodies with you today that will get you thinking. All right, so let's dive in. Signs your messaging needs help. All right, so I want you to take a look at these as I go through them and see if you identify yourself in any of them. And if you do, I'm actually just going to open up the chat. If you do identify yourself in any of them, just like pop a 1 in the chat. And that just helps us all know that like we're in this together, because trust me, these things are very common. So the first one, you get on a sales call and people don't know what you do. That has happened to me for sure, where, I've been like, wait, how did they not know? How were they confused about what I do? Right? Totally, it happens. Or you're doing a lot of marketing, but sales feels slow. This one can feel incredibly frustrating, especially when people say things to us like, boy, it seems like you're really busy. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I wish I were busy, or why aren't you buying? But nobody's buying. They're just like, you look really busy. You look like you're doing well, but they're not buying. Okay. You're talking a lot on sales calls, trying to explain things. Typically, the rule of thumb here is that in terms of sales, the person who talks the least typically is in the strongest position. And so, as salespeople in our business, if that is still your function, or if you have a sales team, we want to make sure that we are excellent listeners. If we're doing a lot of talking and a lot of explaining on our sales call, that is usually a sign that our content has not done the job for us in advance of the sales call to prime the prospect to be ready to buy. For me, a sales call is not a place where I'm trying to convince you to buy anything. A sales call is a place where I might be addressing some final questions and we are getting ready for the actual sale. But if that hasn't happened, that's a sign that we can have our content work better for us and our messaging work better for us in advance. Okay. People say, that's interesting, but they don't buy. So like they hear what you do, maybe you're at a networking event, they think it's interesting, but they don't buy. Oh, so frustrating. You are attracting the wrong customers. If you are consistently attracting customers who cannot afford your services, this is 1000% a messaging problem. And good news today, you're going to get some ideas on how to fix it. You may notice that competitors with inferior products are quote unquote winning. And you're thinking to yourself, why are they doing so well? And I'm not. And I'm like, I know I'm totally capable of this. What's that about? And finally, you rarely get referrals. If you are not getting referrals into your business as much as you would like, this is a very strong indication that people do not know how to refer you. And what we're going to do today is going to solve that problem. All right. Anyone here, as I was making this list, I almost always hear from somebody who says, Laura, you're calling me out. So if anyone here is feeling like, oh my God, she's totally calling me out, I just want you to know you're not alone, okay? And as I'm sort of looking at the chat in my other screen, I can see a lot of you are resonating with these things. So you're not alone. We're gonna work on it. Here's the good news. We are all hardwired for story. From the time that we were in the caves and writing on the caves and telling stories on the caves, we are literally hardwired for story. That's not just a way of speaking. That's the truth. When we speak in story, which is what we're talking about largely when we talk about messaging, we are prospects, and the people we speak to are 3 times more likely to retain the information than if I just give you numbers with facts and figures. Because story is compelling, people want to listen, they're invested. And so today we're going to learn how to become better storytellers in our messaging to compel more people to take the next step. Your messaging tells a story. And great messaging has three key components. It's going to get attention, so they're going to stop scrolling. People are bombarded with over 10,000 messages a day. And what we're really going to be focusing on today is how to get them to stop the scroll, to pay attention. And that's going to require from you that we actually are willing to do things a little bit differently from the sea of people who do what we do out in the world. And I'll talk more about that. It also builds trust. They really believe through your messaging that you're somebody who gets them and who can help them. Now, I want to give you this key phrase about trust. People always buy according to the amount of trust you have earned with them. I will say that again. People always buy according to the amount of trust you've earned with them, which means that the more trust we earn with someone, the faster we can earn that trust, the more likely we are to be able to sell to them sooner. So if you are trying to shorten the sales cycle, one of the questions we want to be asking ourselves in our messaging and in our marketing is, how am I building trust? Okay, we'll talk more about that. And your great messaging is also going to drive action or intent to take the next step. So if you want messaging that sells, which is what we're here to talk about, I want you to remember this key phrase. Cash loves clarity. It is obsessed with clarity. And for the rest of our presentation today, I'm going to be talking about how your messaging can get clearer. Because here's the thing, clear messaging is actually contagious, and not in the bad way contagious, in the really good way, that when your messaging is very clear, people know how to talk about you. They know how to refer you. They get excited to share you with the world because it's super clear. Several years ago in my business, I remember a very good friend of mine who could make tons of referrals for me and could open a lot of doors for me. I thought he understood what I did. And I remember he made a referral to me, and it was over email, and he said something like, Laura does a bunch of things. She's really cool, and, but she does like a lot of things, and just talk to her about it. And, my heart sank, because I thought, oh my gosh, one of my best friends isn't even sure how to talk about me. And that's not on them, that's on me. And that really became a moment where I realized I need to get a lot clearer about how I'm talking about myself, because people who want to help me can't, because they don't know how to talk about me. And so let's talk about it. There are 4 components to clear messaging. The first component is it has to be specific. Just going to give you the overview for now. We're going to dive into the details in a minute. The second component is it must be benefits driven. That is, sometimes we like to talk about the features of what we offer, but we really want to focus on benefits. I'll dive more, and I have examples out the wazoo for all of you. Thirdly, it's going to drive curiosity. People are going to want to learn more. And I'm going to give you some tricks and tips for how to drive curiosity so people can learn more and take the next step. And the fourth thing is, our messaging has to be very tangible. So let me start with the first one, and we're going to go into detail on all of these. Getting specific. Your prospect wants to feel like you're in their head. And just put a 1 in the chat if you have ever had a prospect say this to you. If you've ever had a prospect say, I saw your post, I looked at your website, and it felt like you were talking directly to me. If you have ever heard that, that is a wonderful, wonderful sign. Okay, I'm seeing someone's excellent. It's a very, very good sign that you are talking to your prospect. They feel heard, they feel understood. This requires us to have a lot of empathy, in particular to understand where the prospect is in their journey, in their buyer journey when they come to us. Talking directly to them and not to everyone. So here's what I mean by that. Great marketing both attracts and repels. I'm going to give you some examples of this on the next slide. But what I mean by that is that we have to be willing to select and talk directly to, sometimes it's called our customer avatar or client avatar, sometimes it's called our ideal client. We have to be willing to talk directly to that market. And sometimes that will be at the exclusion of other markets. What I always love to tell people about this is that this is one of the key ways you're actually going to stand out in the marketplace from other folks who are too scared to do it. It's also one of the key problems that entrepreneurs, especially in small business, have, is they want to feel like I need to appeal to everyone so I can get business. But that actually doesn't work. What that does is it actually waters you down. So we want to take a stand and say, I'm going to go after my market. I'm going to target them directly. And that might be to the exclusion of others. But you always have to remember that when we do this, people who want to work with you in other markets who are still compelled by your message, even if it's not directly for them, will still come and try to talk to you. Happens all the time. Next, you want to show you understand exactly what they're going through. And that can only be done when we're very clear on the market we are speaking to and what is actually happening in the life of that person. Let's say you are, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who makes a very specific type of children's or babies' clothing, right? She is speaking directly to mothers who who think this would assist their child in crawling. Okay, that's really important for her brand. That means she's not going to be talking to single child-free women. That means she's probably not going to be talking to dads. She's very, very clear, and she understands the challenges of exactly what they're going through, so that when they're like, oh my gosh, she's speaking directly to me. Next, that makes, by doing 1 and 2, we get to number 3. It makes them feel special and like they are actually a part of something. One of the most important things we need to consider in our messaging is making our clients and prospects feel really, really smart for having chosen to work with us. The worst thing you can ever do in any messaging is make anyone feel stupid or dumb for not having figured it out by now or for not having worked with you. That is a deal killer. It is repulsive in a way that it repels everyone. We don't like to use shame-based marketing. It is one of the sleaziest things you can do. So we want to make people feel really special for having discovered us and that they're in on it. So a lot of times when I give this presentation, people say, well, Laura, you're talking about being really specific. What about things like Nike and Apple? I mean, they're appealing to like millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. And you're right, they are. But here's the thing, you're not Nike or Apple. You don't have the market share. You don't have the brand share. You don't have the research and development departments. You don't have the marketing investment that they do. And so that is why I said at the top of this, while I've worked with really big companies, sometimes the strategy and often the strategy is going to be different when we're working at a small business level in recognition of share of voice that we have in the market, brand recognition that we have in the market. Things just work differently. And so they have actually earned the right to do that, which we have not done yet. One way I like to explain this is if you imagine, just show of hands, give me a 1 in the chat. Has anyone actually been on a plane before where it was such a small plane that they had to be weighed to go on the plane? This happened to me many years ago when I was going to Fiji. I was island hopping, and they put us all on a plane to get, or on a scale to get weighed before we could go on. And I want you to think about it this way. As business owners right now, we are learning to fly that plane where everything we put on the plane has to be weighed to make sure that the plane can still take off. And every time as business owners, if I'm in that little prop plane, I'm still learning how to fly, right? If I start adding more services, if I start adding more target markets, if I start adding more ideas, if I start adding more stuff, all of that carries a weight that we cannot carry because we don't have the resources to fly. And what that means is that the more you pack on to your little prop plane, the more it weighs you down, the less opportunity you have to get escape velocity and to soar. And so I encourage you, as I talk about getting really specific about your market and who you're talking to, remember that by getting specific, you are going to earn the right to go broad over time, earn the right to learn how to fly those bigger and bigger planes, so to speak, and carry more and more as you go. But it can't really start there. So we will earn the right to go broad over time. And this is one of the initial steps we'll take. So let's look at some examples. These are all from clients of mine. Here's broad versus specific. So I want to give you tangibles. I'm an accountant for small businesses. Okay. That's very broad. Small businesses are actually 98% of businesses in the United States. If that is your target market, is an extremely broad target market. Instead, what we did is we changed her messaging to this. I'm doing accounting for interior designers by a former designer. Her market got much more specific. She said, I have some insider knowledge. This is an accountant who right now her business is pulling in over 500,000, perhaps close to $1 million a year, just by making this change in going narrow. I'm a marketing expert. Cool. What does that even mean? That could be anything. You could do SEO, you could do ads, you could do websites. This client says, finally, make HubSpot work for your growing agencies. So she's very clear now on I do HubSpot. And who do I do it for? I do it for growing agencies. This is very, very clear to people. They think, oh, I either have HubSpot, I want to have HubSpot. It's not working for my growing agency. It's very clear what she's offering. And it's very specific. I do branding for mission-driven companies. I know that I have some of my clients here and people who follow me. I love people who are mission-driven. However, it is very, very hard to run a business when you are trying to find mission-driven companies, because every single company on the planet has a mission. And that is probably not what you mean. So figuring out what those people actually are is very hard. Instead, this was a client of mine who did brand redesigns for credit unions. So instead, we changed her message to speak directly to credit unions. Have members happily choose you over the mega bank down the street. Last one I'll give for this example, I do PR. All right, I do PR. That could be anything. Who do you do PR for? With this client, we changed it to getting Southeast Michigan nonprofits the attention they deserve. Those nonprofits understand that by getting the attention they deserve, what is not said in that is that they also get in front of donors, they get additional, that helps their fundraising to get more recognition. So there's a lot of sort of implicit and implied messaging within that. All right, let's move on to driving curiosity. So you have 10 seconds before people tune out. I want you to make every word earn its place. And when I say 10 seconds, that is if you're lucky. When we are looking at websites, it can be as small as 3 seconds. It can be minute. If you're at a networking event, you don't have that much time. I mean, maybe you have 10 seconds in that case, but it's quick and people tune out. I know a lot of us have heard of the elevator pitch. And I think if you want to have an elevator pitch, have an elevator pitch. However, I cannot tell you, I've never been trapped in an elevator with someone who I was pitching. It's never happened. I am much more preferential to driving curiosity with the people I speak to than vomiting a bunch of information to them over 30 seconds to 1 minute that they're not going to remember most of it. This is, I think, why a lot of us hate networking events, is because people just spew out this elevator pitch. And it doesn't really encourage conversation. So if you want to have one, go ahead. But I'm going to encourage you to do something different that will drive more curiosity and will get a conversation going. This leads me to something else I want to let you know. Conversations lead to cash. And so the more we can converse with people, and actually converse, not talk at them, but listen deeply to what's going on with them, the higher likelihood we actually have of moving that deal closer to sale. So our messaging must drive curiosity. And one way I like to do this is I like to introduce a concept that I think most of us will relate to, which is going to the grocery store. And I want you to imagine, for example, that we're at the grocery store. And at the grocery store, I'm in line and I'm putting my stuff on the conveyor belt. And there is somebody, let's just say an older woman and her grandson behind me in line. And she says to me, "What do you do for a living?" Well, you want to make sure that whatever you say to people can pass the grocery store checkout line test because it's very clear. That means saying it in about 12 words or less. That means avoiding jargon. And I know, like, I can just hear people saying, like, "Oh my God, could this even work? Like, what do you mean?" It also means being very clear over cutesy. It is using simple language in as few words as possible to communicate. This is hard to do. I'm not suggesting we can all do this in 5 seconds. It is something to work on, something I work on with my clients. But you want to say, does this phrase pass the grocery store checkout line test? I already can anticipate there's going to be a question about jargon, but Laura, what if I'm talking to somebody in my industry? You may have a second phrase that incorporates a little bit more jargon for people in your industry. However, I would encourage you to do this exercise regardless, because you never know who's listening. And the fact is that simplicity always wins and clear always wins. And the easier it is for people to remember what you do, and people do not remember jargon, the easier it is for them to remember what you do, the easier it is for them to refer to you. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who have met who have gotten new business from somebody at their church or at their synagogue, or somebody they met randomly at a party. And that didn't happen necessarily through traditional networking. It happens by just really clearly talking about what you do in a very human way. Sometimes we have to be broken of that because we've sort of learned this like business speak, but people don't listen to business speak. So let me give you some very clear examples of what this means. Grocery store messaging. Okay, so this is sometimes like how we'll see people talk in the business world. We're a B2B SaaS platform that leverages AI-driven predictive analytics. I'm not even going to read the rest of this. It's absolutely crazy. I don't understand what any of it means, and none of us could remember it. We help companies know which customers are about to leave before they do. So much clearer, so much easier. Now, it doesn't say everything, right? It doesn't say everything. It's not an elevator pitch, but it does probably get you to say to yourself, huh, how do they do that? That's how we start the conversation. That's where the curiosity comes in. How do they do that? We want people, when we are working on our grocery store messaging, we really want people to be ideally nodding their head and saying, huh, how do you do that? That's what's going to open the conversation for us. Moving on. I facilitate strategic organizational transformation initiatives by implementing synergistic frameworks. Okay. What's a different way of saying a lot of this word salad? I help teams stop spinning their wheels and actually get things done. This is something that one of my clients uses and has done incredibly, incredibly well with. It's simple. It's so simple. It's so clear. It is spoken in language that is devoid of jargon. It sounds just like the way you talk to somebody in the grocery store. And this actually works really, really well to get the conversation going, right? The goal of these is for people to say, how do you do that? Is to get the curiosity sparked. The goal is not to present a solution in, within the first 30 seconds. It's to talk to people. Remember, conversations lead to cash. So we want to get the conversation going. And this is ultimately why. I don't know if there's any other donut lovers in the group. Hopefully there are. Please let me know that I'm not alone in the chat. But I love donuts. But here's the deal. I love these donuts like with this like glaze on them. But what I don't love is seeing people's eyes glaze over when I talk to them about what I do. And so we need to protect ourselves and others from getting the glaze, okay? The glaze is meant for the donuts. The glaze is not meant for people's eyes rolling into the back of their head because they're confused about what you do. You've spoken for too long. They don't understand any of it. Keep the glaze on the donuts, my friends, okay? So next, we want to speak in benefits. All right, this is the third thing we're going to look at. Founders fall in love with their solution. That is so normal because you have worked so freaking hard for what you do. So of course you love it. You know it inside and out. You know all the details. But customers fall in love with their problem being solved. And this is where there can be a real disconnect in how we talk to our clients, particularly when we're talking about what's referred to as like more top of funnel activities and awareness building activities and trust building activities. We tend to obsess more over our solutions than the problems being solved. And the truth is that people buy solutions to problems. So we want to always in our messaging be asking ourselves, putting ourselves in the client's shoes and thinking, well, what's in it for me? If I were the client, what's in it for me? People buy outcomes over a process. I see a lot of times entrepreneurs will attempt to sell their process as being better. I'm going to tell you what, they don't care. They want the outcome. Your process will come into play later on in the sales discussion and negotiation. Of course it will come, and they're going to want to eventually learn about that. But up top, high level, people want outcomes, and how you get outcomes, how you do it, the process by which you go about doing that, that can come later. Okay. Doesn't need to be up at the top. There are very few people that wake up every morning looking for your features. People are looking primarily, largely for benefits. And so remembering that when we are selling, I'm selling benefits over features. Benefits make people feel the cost of not buying, because while we don't sell feelings, buying is an extremely emotional thing for most buyers. There can be some exclusions to that if you are in a commodity only market. But for the vast majority of us on this call, if not all of us, we really want to focus on helping evoke the emotion of like, oh my gosh, there's a real cost to not buying this now. So features are kind of like, so what? So what does that mean for me? They don't really get it. People don't make the connection in the way that you, the founder, have made the connection. So how does it actually benefit the buyer? Let's look at some examples. Features versus benefits. Features, AI-powered algorithms with real-time data. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means know what customers are about to churn before they do. Oh, got it. And maybe you're going to tell me you use AI. Cool. But like, now I actually understand the benefit of this thing. That's way more attractive than the feature. Feature, sustainable bamboo fiber with triple layer construction. What does it mean to me? Always be asking yourself, what does this mean to the client or the prospect or the customer? In this case, it means towels that dry you fast and last 3 times longer. Oh, okay, got it. Got it. Yeah, I would like that. Another one, organic meal delivery with locally sourced ingredients. Okay. I mean, like maybe I want organic. Okay, locally sourced. Okay, but what does it really mean to me? Oh, I get to eat healthy without cooking, shopping, or planning. Yeah, like now I'm sort of like invested. We're dealing more with the benefits for the client. Would they like to know it's organic? Probably. Those features can come into play. All right. I'm not saying ignore them entirely, but we typically do not lead with them. Typically, and there are some exceptions. Like I said, there is a place for benefits, but further along in the sales process. And next, we're going to look at getting tangible. People do not buy happiness. All right. This sometimes can be hard depending on what business you're in. People do not buy happiness. People do not buy feelings. This is really important for some of you. If anyone on this call is in the personal development space, it is extremely hard to sell feelings. You can try, it's just very, very hard to do. People buy the thing that stops their back from hurting every morning. That will evoke a feeling. Okay. So maybe if my back doesn't hurt in the morning, I will feel better. I will feel happier as a result of that. But you have to, in your messaging, sell something that is tangible, something people can grasp onto and actually get. Of everything I've said today, if you actually just take this to heart, it can begin to make shifts in your messaging if this is a problem that you have. Let's look at some examples from some really big companies to illustrate this. FedEx says, when it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight. Okay. So they're literally talking about the very tangible solution. It has to be there overnight. We have to get it there now. Very, very clear what they do, very tangible what they do. It's also about, there's a lot of implied peace of mind in this. I think you would agree. There's a lot of peace of mind in this, a lot of feelings of like, oh, I feel secure, I feel safe, but they don't lead with that. That is the outcome. The feelings are the outcome of the tangible facts of it's going to be there overnight. Next one, M&Ms. Melt in your mouth, not in your hand. I don't know if they still use this, but I certainly remember that when I was a kid. Very tangible. They're not saying we're like a chocolate candy. They're not leading with features or leading with the benefits. We melt in your mouth, not in your hand, because we have this coating around us. They don't even mention the coating, right? Head and Shoulders gets rid of flakes. Super, super clear. Gets rid of flakes. That's all it does. And so again, it's solving a very tangible problem. Sometimes, people who experience dandruff may experience some embarrassment around it. And by saying, they don't say, oh, we're the shampoo that like makes you not feel embarrassed anymore, right? That would be like so weird. Like, wouldn't that be like the strangest messaging ever? No, they talk about like, it gets rid of flakes. The byproduct of that is not feeling embarrassed that you've got black stuff or white stuff on your black shirt. Okay. Headspace. This one is really interesting because I think a lot of us associate headspace with the personal development world in terms of like feeling calm and ease and grounded and centered. And yes, it does that. But here's what they say: fall asleep in minutes. It's incredibly tangible. Will that lead to the feelings of calm, grounded, centered? Yes, of course it will. But they lead with something that is extremely tangible. And I encourage you and I challenge you to do that in your business as well. TurboTax is the same way. Get your biggest refund possible. I don't really know anyone, maybe apart from CPAs, who aren't at all stressed about taxes. Like anytime we think about it, we're like, oh gosh, I got to go talk to my CPA or I got to use TurboTax. They don't talk here about the stress of taxes, of getting them done. They talk about the outcome, your biggest refund possible. It's very tangible. It's really cool. So let's just quickly review the clear messaging points. We want to be specific. We want to be benefits driven. We want to drive curiosity, and we want to be really, really tangible in what we do. And once you develop that message around this, you can use this in multiple touch points in multiple areas, from your social media to your website, to your pitch decks, to your sales enablement materials, to your customer onboarding, your packaging, your LinkedIn profile, if you're doing TED Talks or speeches, to your email campaigns. You can begin to take that message and wrap your brand story around it. One thing I haven't said explicitly, but is nice to imply here, or to now say explicitly, is that this story is about your customer, and it is about the journey they're on. It's not necessarily about the founder's journey. Now, there is a time and place for your journey as a founder, but what is going to get people to buy is to understand what's in it for me. What is this? What is the clear benefit of this? What is the most important benefit of this to me? And how can I apply it to my business or life right now? Consistency builds brand trust. And so we want our message to be consistent across all of our channels. So what you say, for example, on LinkedIn is going to want to match what you say on your website. That's why we want to make sure that this aligns, because any place where the consistency is missing, there is like a little bit of a crack in the foundation. And remember, trust always leads, people buy always according to the amount of trust we've earned with them. So the greater the trust, the greater the ability there is for people to want to buy from us and interest in buying from us. So I've given you a lot of information today, and I wanted to, we're going to take some questions, but first I want to wrap up with this. Where do you start with everything I've given you? Because there's a lot here. And I want to give you 3 things. The first is, I want you to start talking to your current customers. Your current customers are going to tell you why they bought from you. You're going to ask, why did you buy from me? What compelled you to purchase from me? They're going to tell you the problem they were having at the exact moment they were having it that compelled them to talk to you. That is a really important clue into understanding why people buy, right? So talk to your current customers. The next thing is you want to talk to your prospects. And when I say talk to your prospects, I mean talk to a lot of prospects. One of the greatest pieces of advice I was given earlier in my career was to talk to 100 people and get a sense for what their problems were, what they were looking to solve, and where I could fit in. If you can talk to people who are, have demonstrated some kind of interest in what you do and actually hear what they think their problem is, what they think they're trying to solve, you can begin to craft your messaging around that. We often, as the founder, you know best, right? Like you actually know what somebody needs because you've been in this world for years. You understand deeply what's going on with people. But your prospect isn't there. And so sometimes what can happen is we can sell them what they need, but it's not what they want. And that's where the messaging can go sideways. So instead of saying, well, I know what's best for you, and I'm going to message around what I think is best for you, I want to offer you this reframe. Sell them what they want, give them what they need. And if you do that, they will love you for it. But your messaging has to address where your prospect is in time and what they think their problems are, not what you think or know their problems are. That disconnect, the wider that disconnect, the less people are going to say, oh, she's really, or he's really in my head. They're not going to see it at all because you're not in their head. You're in your head, right? Okay. So that is something really important to look at. And you want to start running messaging experiments. Don't be afraid. I have a lot of sort of stuffed animals and fun things behind me. A lot of them have a business purpose. And one of them is a giant pancake right behind me. I think you can see it kind of like, let me point right there as a pancake, and is a big squishmallow. And what I love to tell my clients is, I'm assuming we've had a lot of food metaphors today. I'm hoping, are there some pancake lovers here? I'm hoping there are. I love pancakes, but I'm going to tell you something. The first pancake you ever make, the one you throw in the pan Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m., it's kind of a mess, right? Like it's sort of like a little sideways and lumpy, and maybe it's burnt on one side. Okay. The first one is always the mess, and I've been making pancakes for 35 years. Here's the deal. In business, we have to get more comfortable making the first pancake. And so running experiments, making pancakes, first one, that's going to be like a little messy. That's okay. We'll get better. We'll just keep going. That your ability to rapidly iterate and experiment like that by just making pancakes, you'll get better and better as you go, I promise you. You cannot, however, read the jar from inside the label. And this is one of the biggest challenges with messaging. If I'm inside the jar, I can't read the label on the outside, right? This is where we are in business. As business owners, you are very, very close to the problem. And in fact, you are too close to it. You are so close to the business that you can't see your business clearly. And I highly, highly urge you, if you are experiencing any of the problems that I talked about at the top of this call, I want you to really seriously consider working with a marketing and messaging strategist, such as myself or someone else in your network, because what you need is someone who can see the problem way more clearly than you can. Finally, and then we're going to get to our Q&A. I wanted to offer to this audience as a big thank you for having me a messaging audit. So I am happy to review your website and show you exactly where you're losing people or where things are going off. All you have to do is email me and just let me know you'd like a messaging audit, and send me your website and we will get that started, okay? Because that's something I want to offer to you, because I know a lot of what we've talked about today can feel like a little bit esoteric and like, how do I apply it? And I'd love to give you some ideas for that. And if you would like the presentation as well, feel free to email me and just let me know you'd like the presentation. As a reminder, I'd love to connect with you all on LinkedIn. That is my happy place. And I want to thank you all so much for being here today. It has been an absolute pleasure. We are going to move on to, I think, Q&A, Colin. Is that good? Let me move into Q&A. Give me 1 second. We're going to stop the share so I can see everyone. Okay.
Perfect. Laura, what an
What?
amazing
How'd it go?
presentation. What an amazing presentation. And I'm hungry, and also a lot of valuable tips and tricks in there. So great job.
I love it. Okay.
For those of you on the call, drop those questions in the Q&A box. We'll try our best to get to them all. Up first from Jenny, I'm struggling with the mission-driven
Yeah.
small banks example you
Yeah.
gave. Um, you guys are from that to small banks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get
How like that does seem kind of random. That's like a great question. How do we get permission to the small banks? Well, what we did is we did some exploration into who my clients primarily were, who they primarily enjoyed working with. And they felt that credit unions were very mission driven. But instead of saying credit unions, they were saying mission driven. And so when we began to explore, well, who are you working with? Where is your expertise lie? What customers do you know best? It all came back to credit unions. And so we got clearer in the messaging that way. That's how we got there. Yeah. And that will be different for everyone. But definitely your target market often leaves clues. So for that person, look at like, who do I have the most experience working with? Who do I enjoy working with the most? Who pays me the best? Who do I have the most connections in? That type of thing can also like answer some of those questions for you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. This is one that I'm sure a ton of folks will identify with. I'm a florist and I have a hard time getting customers to tell me their budget. I send
Yeah.
a quote, don't hear back. Sometimes I lose because the quote's above their budget, but that I feel if they tell me their budget, I can create a proposal. But how can I get the customer to disclose this top secret?
It's a secret. What could it possibly be? I know, right? Budget questions are really, really tough. So how do we get people to talk about budget? Well, I want to offer you a few different ways to think about this. And I don't know which one would be right for your business, but some food for thought. You can do a few things. If you primarily run a business, and I don't know a lot about florists, so maybe this will apply. But if you primarily run a business that is heavily productized, and by that I mean I have packages. So I have a small floral package. I have a mid-size floral package. I have a large size floral package. Then the price is the price is the price. Okay. That's how we do it. The second thing you can do is you can tell people that, based on what you're hearing, if you're not productizing your services, you can hear what's going on with the prospect. You can run your numbers on what that's going to cost, plus the profit you'd like to make off of it. And you can let people know, for a wedding, for example, of this size, this would typically run around X dollars. Is that what you're thinking? Now, one thing we do with that is when we say, is that what you're thinking? We're going to stop talking after that. We're going to allow for what would be referred to as a pregnant pause for people to take that information in and respond to it. And they may respond and say, that's not what I was thinking. Or they may respond and say, yeah, that was kind of along the lines. That's one way that we can also get budget out of people. One thing I would also encourage you to do is talk to people in your industry. It's really important for us to not keep pricing information so precious that we actually shoot ourselves in the foot by not learning what other people are charging. So I'd also encourage you to talk to peers in your industry.
Awesome. That's great advice across the board, even for SaaS companies.
Yeah.
They can apply that for sure. Let's see. Can you share a bit more about telling your story versus messaging for your audience? What are your 1 to 2 tips you can share about how to approach this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely people want to fall in love with you. Okay. So there is a place for personal branding and falling in love with the founder. Absolutely. And I think certainly with the rise of social media, I think we've all heard more about parasocial relationships. But you want to have a balance of this is my story and this is how I help people. That balance is going to be different for everybody. So, some people, will say once a week, I'm going to tell a, personal branding story, maybe about my origin story or my journey. And maybe at another point during the week, I'm going to talk about the exciting, customer testimonials. I'm going to talk about, behind the scenes of the company. I'm going to talk about, things we've heard from people, or there's a variety of different sort of content pillars that can be created based on your individual needs. But yeah, I would do a mix. And it's kind of like running experiments. We sort of see what resonates with people. We see what brings people in. We see what brings more opportunities. And whatever is working better, we're probably going to up the dial on a little bit more.
Great. Let's see another question here. Outside of a website and social media, how would one know the best way to market to their audience that is efficient?
Well, there's best depends, right? How much money do you have to spend? Because if you want to go fast, you can throw a lot of money at ads, right? If you want to go really fast, you can go the ad route. If you are comfortable going a little bit slower, but getting a lot more customer research along the way, you're going to have to go the way of networking and the way of speaking and presenting yourself to new audiences. So those are really our options here. It's you could go really fast and spend a lot of money to go fast, and because you will be making mistakes along the way as you're learning how to refine the market and the audience, or you can go a little bit slower and be more personally involved through speaking engagements and networking engagements and referrals and things like that. So it's not as fast, but it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Well, these are all great questions, y'all. And I'm getting so many this is such a great presentation, which aren't questions, but still are great notes. Let's see. Um, there's a question here on where I just lost it. They're coming in so fast. Oh, there's a question here. The benefits almost sounds like a mission statement. How is it different?
Sometimes a mission statement would, to my understanding, be about why we do what we do. When we're talking about benefits, it's really about customer focused, why the customer cares about it. So I think that would be the main distinction.
Oh, and I love your grocery store pitch idea.
Yeah.
That's just
I,
such a good way.
it's honestly, it's it's such a game changer if you can get it down. And everyone is capable of getting it down. It is hard to do on your own, but it is possible. It's not
Yeah.
impossible. And learning how to speak, we have all been indoctrinated over many, many years of working in the corporate world with a certain way and a certain language that is often spoken in corporate circles. And the truth is that as entrepreneurs, the best thing you can do is unlearn that language. It will really help you to move further because it feels real.
Mm,
And what feels real to people is instantly more memorable and attractive.
yeah. And I've heard through just through years of working through entrepreneur or with entrepreneurs that if you use certain jargon terms, which you recommended that people avoid in the first
Yeah.
sentence, which is great
Yeah.
advice, uh, VCs, investors, employees, potential
Yeah.
customers have a signal to that buzzword. So we always try to say like somebody who's very young or very old should be able to understand what you're.
Yes. Absolutely. Just like in
That
the
way you don't give
grocery
them
store
so
checkout
much
line.
detail where they're like, no, I already worked with an AI startup in B2B SaaS the other day and it didn't go well, right?
It's like, what?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
what do you actually
totally.
do?
Yeah. What do
Great.
you actually do? That's a
Yeah.
great question. What do you actually do? Yeah. We don't want to confuse people. We want them to be curious, but not confused.
Yeah. And that, yeah, you nailed it on the head. And you want them to say, and how do you do that? Or tell me
Yeah.
more,
Tell me
right? You want to
more.
continue the conversation versus fill their brain. So
Mhm.
great advice. Well, Laura, we are at almost at time. So all this has been super good. You've given your LinkedIn and your email and ways for people to contact you. So thank you so much. But if somebody were to dial into the last minute of this webinar, what's a key takeaway that you want our audience to go away with today?
I think the key thing is what I mentioned up top. I really believe that cash loves clarity. And if you are struggling to bring in cash, increase your revenue, sort of move faster, close deals more quickly, the first place we want to look is at your messaging and how you're marketing yourself, what you're saying in the market, how it's resonating, because there is probably great opportunity within that to help quite a bit.
Cash loves clarity. What a great way to end it, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much, Colin. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And for everyone still on, thank you for joining. And we've got a bunch of webinars in the coming months. So check those out in the link in the chat. And also, we'll follow up with more information on what's on the horizon in our follow-up email. Thank you all for joining us today. And we look forward to welcoming you all back online with us soon. Thanks again, everyone.